Hello and welcome to the Real Returns Podcast. My name is Andrew Reichert and I am your host. And I am joined with my co-host, Dan Croce. Dan, how are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to have a great conversation. So happy to be here again.
Great. Thanks, Dan. Well, we've got an exciting episode today. We have two guests who are friends of ours, folks we've known for a long time, and who share a mutual passion for financial literacy, financial education, and really the impact that that can have on people's lives. So today is really all about how education is impact for today and for future generations. And they build products that help people to understand what that impact will be throughout their lifetime and into future generations as well. We believe you'll get a ton of value out of today, as this will help you prepare for a better financial future for not just yourself, but also your family and your friends and others that you work with. So with that, let me introduce our first guest. His name is Gene Natali. Gene and I have known each other for a while, again, through just being in the financial literacy space. And he's now the CEO of Troutwood, which is a company that builds financial planning and investment education tools for individuals. Previously, he was in finance and portfolio management at a large institutional asset management firm. And today they are building really cool software and tools that help you make good financial decisions and avoid major mistakes. So we're excited to have Gene on the show. Welcome, Gene.
Hey, Andrew, thank you. And as you were doing the introduction, I was thinking, I think it's got to be 10 years now, if not longer, that we've known each other.
Yeah, we have. And we were just talking about last time we bumped into each other was at Sorgel's. So our wives know each other, and it's been a good long relationship. So excited to have you on the show.
Thank you. Likewise.
Cool. And joining Gene on that journey is our next guest, Jeff Davidek. Happy to introduce him. Jeff is Gene's co-founder and the chief strategist at Troutwood. He has an extensive career in all kinds of financial arenas. He's worked in institutional asset management, investment banking, and even at a REIT. So he's got some real estate experience as well. So Jeff, thank you for joining us today. Glad to have you on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Well, we are going to jump right in. So one of the things that we like to do is treat these episodes, because Dan and I are real estate nerds, we like to treat these episodes as though we're kind of building a house throughout the episode. So we're going to start with the foundation. A good house needs to be on a good foundation. And for us, that's really just getting to know you guys and your organization. So can you just tell us a little bit about Troutwood and what you're setting out to do?
Absolutely. In a single sentence, Andrew, we have built financial planning software that allows individuals to build and implement a working financial plan. As we sit today, and with that introduction, there's probably a number of listeners or folks that say, but what is a financial plan? Why do I need one? How do I get started? And that's because I think we're in the very early stages of this conversation, and I'll draw a parallel that served as our inspiration for founding Troutwood. The world that Jeff and I worked in previously, 100% of our institutional clients had a financial plan called an investment policy statement. It's an extremely important document. And as we looked under the hood at the individual financial situation, there's varying statistics, but generally 1% of individuals have a plan for their finances, for managing their financial future. And we're talking about the step that follows a basic budget, a true working, living, breathing financial plan. And as we look further into the hood, we saw very large discrepancies between investment returns that individuals achieve, i.e. far lower than what our institutional clients were achieving, and saw an opportunity, I think, to narrow that gap.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And as you think about narrowing that gap, are there particular age ranges that you find are the most prime for that opportunity for really getting in at a certain age to understand this type of financial product?
The statistics would say every age, but internally at Troutwood, we've circled the number 17 as the single most important if we want to have the impact that we all think we can. The reason that number is so important is that every 17-year-old in America, very marginally rounding right there, but nearly every 17-year-old is in a classroom somewhere. And two things happen when that 17-year-old turns 18. First, they're a legal adult, and debt is a legal obligation. Student loans is obviously a headline item right now. The second is that once we turn 18, we disperse to various careers, various colleges. It's much more difficult to reach everyone. And there's fascinating charts if you Google poverty in America going back to 1970, or, looking at things like the wealth gap, which are popular topics. In our opinion, 17 is the age where both individuals have learned enough to understand the conversation and also, importantly, take action.
And it's also on the precipice of so many major life decisions. College is a huge decision. We've all seen the headlines about student loans, and because individuals are young enough when they're 17, they have such a huge time horizon ahead of them with respect to the opportunity side of the equation.
How long have you guys been at this? How long has Troutwood been around? And can you talk a little bit about the genesis? I mean, you explained sort of the why as it relates to seeing the benefits of a plan and institutional asset management. But at what point did you guys decide to tackle this problem?
Boy, the point we decided to tackle would have come before the founding of the company, which was May of 2019. So we're 3 years in. Enterprise-based software companies, generally the number is it takes 5 years to get your product to where you want it to be to market. The impetus probably came, Jeff and I probably started talking, I don't know, maybe less talking, but more both observing simultaneously the need and the opportunity. We very strongly believe that if individuals, so let me back up then. Financial literacy is becoming mainstream. You're hearing a ton of talk about financial literacy. It's going to be in every classroom as we sit today. It's in 15 of our states, where there's a massive movement here in 2022 to make it a required course. Educate, and it's all hugely positive. I have a fairly strong opinion that personal finance and financial literacy is more than a letter grade. The consequences with our money choices are very different than a bad grade, just to be blunt. So what we're looking to create is the action that follows. And I think as Jeff and I, progress through our careers, saw what institutionals were capable of doing, saw the pieces that individuals could replicate, we began to think, is it that simple? And if it is that simple, what is necessary to build it? And the answer was software. Every time we had the conversation, it's software offers the scalable solution to so many financial problems. Fun fact, we've even spoken and met with refugee groups who have candidly told us that phones are more important than food in refugee camps because phones offer a way out. So technology has become so mainstream across various devices. We pushed the chips in 2019, and later in the episode we can share some mistakes we made early on because we're a better company because of them. But we pushed the chips in 2019 and founded the company.
Gene and I both have the privilege of being college educators. I teach fundamentals of financial planning at Grove City, and Gene teaches personal finance at the University of Pittsburgh. But going back to his earlier comment, we were working in the institutional industry. Our clients had billions of dollars that they were investing. And we always had a role through our careers to educate, to talk about how macroeconomics could impact a portfolio or asset allocation or valuation, all of the different metrics that you guys are well familiar with as investors. Seeing the disparity from the day job, working with these institutional investors, and then working with students who are 17 or 19 or 20. And recognizing that so many of the concepts for success are transitive, but something isn't being communicated. There's a gap that is to be bridged. And the same principles that can make Burgos successful or can make JP Morgan successful or endowments and foundations, they can apply to individuals if only they know how, if the impact is made through education.
Yeah, I love your comment there about the impact being made through education, and I totally agree. Gene and Jeff, you guys bring a unique perspective, having been educators and having been in that system, and I think you've both seen the benefit of that, but also the gap. You've seen the gap that exists to help people really understand financial literacy and financial education. I love that you're tackling that through Troutwood. So I think that's a great foundation. That's a great introduction to what you all are up to and what you're doing. And as you know, on this podcast, we just love to talk about the impact that you're having. So I'd love to segue into just kind of framing the house and getting into a little bit more detail about how you think about impact. So I would just love to hear, I'm getting a sense for your heart for impacting people through your product, but how specifically are you thinking of that impact? And one of the questions I have is there a way in which you're actually measuring that through the work that you're doing as well?
Yeah, I think it started for me with the CFA Society's financial planning competition. Gene is a board member at the CFA Society here in Pittsburgh. And one of the outreach efforts that the society has been doing for quite a while is to challenge young people to come up with a plan for their finances when they actually start adulting. You know, what's your career going to be? What's your budget going to look like in year one? What are your assets and liabilities? What are your goals that you hope to achieve? What's your game plan? And so being able to see those plans as a teacher and actually see how students are following up a year or two later, even after they've graduated from college, and say, hey, this plan is great. You know, I'm actually following this. I have confidence in my direction. That was the first sign of impact that I saw. I don't know, Gene, if you have some stories.
Well, absolutely, and it's probably helpful to provide context that Jeff and I mostly teach college seniors. So we see a small number of students who've chosen to take a class on, call it personal finances, financial planning, and they are a small subset of the overall. These are just the students who are brave enough to take the class. And to your question, there's both a quantitative and a qualitative component. The quantitative is more measurable through specific metrics, data that is available. Vanguard put out about a month ago, so dating this, summer 2022, late spring, they put out the statistics on the average 401k balance, and the numbers remain frightening. Student debt crisis is taken the front page. The retirement crisis that is formed underneath is far more frightening, in my personal opinion. I'd rather be 22 with a high student debt than 55 with a low 401k or retirement balance. So we have strategically chosen to spend all of our time focusing on the younger generations and ways to start to change that needle. So quantitatively, there will be metrics that say yay or nay, we're doing that. Qualitatively, I think it's a far more interesting conversation. So I've personally given a little more than 1,000 unique talks, and I had the opportunity to meet students across America. I don't know if it's in all 50 states, but close. And you see a hope in the eyes and the hearts of these young people that is so contagious and exhilarating and exciting. And for years, I felt a little hollow because all I could do was fist bump and say good luck. To my earlier comment that action has to follow education when it comes to our finances. My opinion, based on those experiences and observations and qualitative measurements, young people have hope. If we pair hope with a plan, we're going to see brighter and better futures. Maybe we have happier homes, healthier communities, less drug use, less financial stress. Financial stress statistically is the number one source of stress, both at home and in the workplace.
That's fascinating. Getting a little bit into the broader impact of what you guys are building and some of the tangential ways in which that can make a difference in communities. It makes me wonder, in our business, we think about the impact that we have by bucketing our stakeholders. We've got our tenants, our investors, our employees, and the communities in which we own and operate property. How do you guys think about stakeholders and the value chain? And are you singularly focused on the young people that you want to impact their financial futures, or do you think more broadly about the way that your business can make a difference?
That's a great question. We think a lot about the impact being transitive from young people who maybe haven't even had a bank account before, who haven't started a career, to the educators trying to connect with them and make a broader impact in their school or their community, to the nonprofits or governmental organizations trying to make an impact across entire regions of schools and communities, and to businesses who are trying to ensure that their employees fully benefit from the opportunity that they have to have a career with a firm, to build families, all the things that a good business allows. So we do think of it in a much broader sense. And that's why we've made the intentional decision to structure our software in a way that ranges from individual applications to help people learn, to help people create budgets or learn concepts or to plan, all the way up to enterprise portals that allow, say, a nonprofit that wants to sponsor a group of students to be able to assess KPIs for that group of students. What goals are they setting? What is the assessment of their current situation? What measurements from pre and post can we glean in order to understand if our grant dollars or the education is having the desired impact?
When that question was asked and you mentioned tenants, one of the books I read in the past year was Front Desk by Kelly Yang, and just showed that, I don't know if either of you have read that. It's a kid's book, in full disclosure, but a very good one. The author visited my kid's school in North Allegheny. They came home so excited to meet her, and I'll be honest, I stayed up till 2 a.m. devouring the books about a family that ran a motel, and there's the bond and the community that formed with their tenants. So not a one-to-one correlation, but there's a human side that just isn't talked about, and I'm on record. I'm happy to say in this podcast, I'm on record saying internally at Troutwood that I care more about Jeff being a great dad and a husband than I care about him being a great business partner and chief strategist. And I care hugely about him being a great business partner and chief strategist. There's this human side that is so missed in life, and we are very fortunate to have advisors from very large companies assisting in the build out of the software Jeff alluded to. Why are they doing so? Well, I think to the question you just asked, if we build Troutwood correctly, we'll have created software that reduces that financial stress. Financial stress reduces our employees' productivity in the workplace, likely reduces their longevity, burnout, and their engagement. If we're distracted thinking about how to pay next week's or next month's bills, or, worrying about A, B, or C, I'm not focusing on my day job. So when you say stakeholders, I think we think pretty holistically on that in ways to, again, move the needle on conversations that, at least in my opinion, aren't being had.
Gene and I were both competitive swimmers all the way through college. And one of the ways that I sort of think about our mission is like water polo. Before you can play water polo, before you can think about running a play or setting up a teammate for a shot, you have to fundamentally be able to swim. You have to be able to keep your head above water first. And when people are struggling with financial stress, it's difficult to think about those things that could really help them excel, whether it's as an employee or a father or a mother, or in any aspect of their lives. We want people to be strong swimmers and confident swimmers first, so they can focus on those other things.
Yeah, I really love that. I love your holistic perspective of the human element. As you mentioned, we are not just human doings. We are human beings, and therefore we bring our whole self to our work. And if we're struggling financially, that's going to impact the work that we're doing. And Gene, I love your perspective of you care deeply about your business partner in all areas of his life, and not just how he shows up in the work that you do. So one question I have, given the impact that you're having on people and understanding the human element, is have you followed a story of any particular person where you've gotten to see not just the quantitative impact, but really that qualitative impact on their life? You've both been educators for a while. Has there been like a former student or somebody that you've gotten to teach a little bit about what you do and then watch that actually impact their life? I'd love to hear maybe a story around that.
Gosh, I have a ton of past students from University of Pittsburgh that text me, call me, email me. I have a past students of Jeff's in my LinkedIn right now at Grove City with a 401k question. Yes, so absolutely. Students keep in touch. It's inspiring. It's enjoyable when that happens. I feel like I could take that question two ways here, Andrew, kind of sharing that story. But when you started, it was almost like you were looking for like, what's more of an inspirational story? Is there a figure that's helped? And when you said, I just want to share what the first thought that popped in my head, because I think it is interesting. And that's when Paul O'Neill, prior CEO of Alcoa, very famously in his first investor meeting, so we're going to focus on worker safety. It's going to be our number one mission. In an industrial city like Pittsburgh, that was very different than the media was used to hearing about. In that meeting like that, Paul O'Neill should have said, "I'm focused on profit margins. I'm focused on revenue growth." And he came out and said, "I'm going to make sure every mom and dad that works at Alcoa is going to get home to their kids." And that story is now very historical, because Alcoa, it was the beginning of a great time in that company's history. I look at that shareholder meeting, that investor meeting, very as a source of inspiration for me personally, because I believe financial wellness done correctly, and it's not currently being done correctly. It's getting close in many places. Financial wellness done correctly will have the same impact in the workplace. So that was the first thought that popped in my head when that question was asked.
Yeah, I know one day Gene called me and he said, "I'm so excited, Jeff. A student that I taught 7 years ago randomly contacted me. And they told me that the presentation I had given, the class that I had taught, it changed my life," is what the student said, because it made me realize I didn't have to have your classic high-flying career to achieve the goals that I had for myself, to be financially secure, to be able to support a family. I could do something in a non-traditional career. In this case, the student wanted to start a dog grooming business, a mobile dog grooming business. Definitely an unconventional, not easily BLS categorized career. But they were making it happen 7 years later. And, we're big believers in the importance of setting goals and having plans and having some structure, because a person with a plan statistically is more likely to succeed than a person without. And without giving away names to protect the innocent, I have a former student who had the privilege of being hired by Burgo. And I think that he's outperforming what his plan had projected. He's walking the walk and is on the way to seeing the realization of a lot of his goals.
That is so cool. It gets us excited, and I love thinking through just those stories make it so tangible that it's not conceptual. The work that you do and the investment that you guys make into the lives of young people is actually altering their trajectory and opening up opportunities for them that they wouldn't otherwise have. So it's pretty amazing. I'm wondering if you guys can tell us a little bit more about the product itself that Troutwood is building. So is it more focused on the budgeting side of things, or thinking about investment returns, or what are some of the nuts and bolts of how this technology and the software helps people address the financial aspects of their lives?
Jeff, let me give the elevator, and then Jeff can, because I can get to brag about Jeff a little bit here. We believe in helping individuals and institutions make informed financial decisions based on data. So Jeff and his team have compiled nearly I'm intentionally saying nearly, because we're not there yet, but nearly 100 million unique data points across financial investments, careers, the choices we all make. So Dan, it is a true, beautifully designed and developed financial plan that will allow individuals to model for careers, model for locations, model for financial goals, model for the financial choices that they will be making. So while budgeting is a piece of what we do, it's a very small piece in the bigger picture. And Jeff, with that introduction, I'll push to you.
Yeah, for us, it's really about the journey, Dan. It's about the walk that we all go through from the time we're young and start to become adults until we're people with families or out there in the real world, so to speak. We have tools that are focused on things like exploring careers. There are over 1,000 different careers that we have made available in a career explorer tool that high school students or college students can use to get a sense of where might my path take me. We have tools that help someone create their very first budget. We have tools that help somebody make a decision if they're trying to decide between going straight into the workforce or trade school or 5 different colleges. They can actually play in a sandbox and see what the math is going to tell them in terms of, okay, here's how much debt you might come out with, but here's also the additional income potential that you might have. If you have student loans, and most of my students and Gene's do, what's your game plan for paying them back? We have a debt prioritization tool that will help guide you to the optimal decision and a more optimal decision on how you can handle your student loan debts. Should I invest in my Roth 401k or my traditional 401k? We have a tool that breaks that down for you. And once you build a financial plan, let's model life events. What if I buy a house? What if I go back to school? What if I have 3 kids? What does that projection look like? Can we do it stochastically? Can we see, a Monte Carlo type simulation on how that would go? And can you help me stay on track? From the beginnings of the journey to the creation of a plan to the actual implementation and execution and monitoring of that plan. That's what it's all about.
Build and implement. Right. The implementing is harder than the building. It's easy to and we can put a business perspective there, all being, running businesses. Building the plan is the easier step. And I'm not, saying that it's an easy step. I'm saying it is an easier step than implementing the plan. So we spend a lot of time thinking about that journey.
What we really wanted to do, we wanted to put Gene in a bottle and make Gene scalable, because I saw this firsthand when he and I were working in institutional money management. We would give these pro bono talks, mostly Gene would give these pro bono talks, and 30 minutes afterwards he would have a queue of students and teachers waiting to ask questions because they valued his competence and his expertise and his advice. And we were thinking to ourselves, I was thinking, what if we could put someone like Gene or someone like Andrew or Dan, somebody who has gotten to a place of confidence and understanding about money. What if we could give that person's knowledge to somebody that maybe doesn't grow up with a Wall Street Journal on the kitchen table, somebody who isn't an accounting and finance major or who hasn't gone to work in iBanking? What if they had that big brother or that aunt or that uncle or that person who could help guide them through some of these things? And that's what we're trying to create with our tools to help with the journey.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it is a journey, as you say, and people are in various places on that journey. And there's an opportunity to change the trajectory. And I think that's really a beautiful picture of how you think of impact. And the impact that you're having is really taking that journey and that trajectory from one direction to another. So I'm curious, you guys obviously have a great understanding of this and have a strong desire to have impact with the work that you're doing. Maybe what's one piece of content that you're taking in these days that you're, is informing how you think of impact that you might recommend to our listeners?
So I'm thinking multiple audiences here so I'll try to give a very concise for both. If we're looking for the workforce, the mom and dad analogy, Andrew, it's that happier, healthier homes. Very difficult to measure. In the classroom, it's a bit of a different measuring stick, where you're looking at being the action step that follows education, and there's a 3-part process there. Financial literacy education, in theory, is intended to lead to financial empowerment. If we achieve financial empowerment within our classrooms, I believe innovation will occur, which we very good for the communities across the U.S., will be very good economically. That can only happen if people have an understanding of their basic finances. And then for the individual, we are looking to almost redefine the way that we think, both in context with our relationship with money, retirement, and our career journeys. I would guess the four of us all have people in our life who talk openly about trying to spend the last nickel they've earned, like in their last 5 minutes, right? Like, I'm not going to waste, I worked hard for this money. I'm not going to spend all of it while I'm on this planet. And there's this like effect where I'm on the video, and I know this is audio, but I'm bringing my hands together because that's intended to be the meeting point of those two things, our last dollar with our last minute. A very big dynamic has occurred in retirement plan options. The pension fund has disappeared, which means our employees, respectively at Troutwood, Burgo, and our peers across the country, we've transferred the ownership and the risk to the employee. But we haven't yet communicated what that means to my earlier comment on Vanguard's average 401k balance being very low. If we can effectively reframe the human mind in terms of the opportunity that we have, everyone listening to this podcast, every young person in America has the opportunity to build a Milton Hershey-like legacy. And that is such a jump that I took from spending our last nickel and our last minute to leaving a Milton Hershey-like legacy. I've done it enough times in the classroom with students, and I know they believe it after they build it. To me, that is about as exciting as an impact as anyone could have, or that we could have as a company, is transferring ownership to the individual and that individual realizing what they are capable of.
One of the pieces of content that has always had a place in our home, there's an old Max Ehrmann poem called Desiderata. And there's a line in there that I think about a lot. It says, "Do not be blind to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and everywhere life is full of heroism." In our students, we see the aspiration for high ideals. So many young people want to do great things. I'm astonished by the students that come through my college classes, how many of them in their plans make a commitment to charity, make a commitment to tithing, make a commitment to giving back. They have high aspirations. And there are so many people who are willing to help. You guys are, what you give back to the community is incredible. The example that it sets for Pittsburgh, there are people out there who want to be heroes, who want to help. But when it comes to financial education, it's not always easy, to figure out who can help. Fred Rogers famously said, "Look to the helpers." There are a lot of areas in life where we can look to helpers, whether it's at your school, whether it's at your job or at your church. But we've wanted to make it easier to find the helpers in the world of financial education and personal finance, and coming into it with a different motive. We're not trying to convince people to start trading Forex options or cryptocurrencies. We're a little bit boring in that sense as far as fintech goes. But we do want to help people figure out how to navigate those tough decisions. In the same way that every time you look at a real estate deal, you want to size up the opportunities, but also the risks. We want to help people understand that in their own lives. Another piece of content that I've taken in recently, it's a fantastic book called Weapons of Math Destruction. We have people on our team who are in AI and machine learning and software architecture, some of the best software engineers in the region, if not the nation or the world. And we think a lot about the consequences of how we build software. And we also have the privilege of seeing in a community like Carnegie Mellon how laser targeted marketing has become for young people. Gene mentioned the importance of the age 17. When you turn 18, you can sign up for your first credit card. You can enter into legally binding contracts. You can take on all kinds of debt. You can have a brokerage account, and you can invest on margin. The marketing is so precise to figure out exactly how to elicit the action step. We need to provide a way be a helper and to counteract some of that. And so we take the other side of the weapons of math destruction, and we try to figure out how can we use software in a way that really puts the user first.
Yeah, I love that. And I think thinking of putting the user first is a bit of a paradigm shift for some people. It flips the pyramid on its head. And I love your comment about thinking of us, not in isolation, but really we're in this community. And Mr. Rogers got it right. We're part of the neighborhood, and understanding that impact on one another is an important component to that. So that's great. All right. Well, we're getting towards the end of our time here. So I feel like we've got this house pretty well built, understanding the impact that can be possible through just getting educated and understanding financial education. So we're going to put a roof on this house now. And the way I like to think of that are what are the overarching concepts that we want to talk about, and really what is the impact of your organization moving forward. So first question I have for you is just, if you look out 10 years from now, how will you know that you've been successful and that you've actually had the impact that you hope to have on your stakeholders?
The quantitative numbers show that we have been. To me, that's more important. Qualitative is fun to talk about. It's a good short-term metric. It's a good human metric. To survive long-term, it's got to be backed with quantitative data.
Yeah, we're still in our beta phase, but I remember Gene called me one morning. He said, "Jeff, you won't believe how many people just downloaded our Troutwood app, and how many people created plans." And I hope 10 years from now, we'll be able to say we've helped thousands of people create their first financial plan. We've helped thousands of people navigate tough decisions about repaying debt or making a commitment to investing, for the long term. And I hope that we've helped thousands of schools improve the financial confidence, the KPIs that measure knowledge in different areas of financial understanding. I hope we've helped thousands of people find their first internship or navigate a college choice or find their dream career. Seeing that type of data will let us and will let the organizations who want to sponsor financial education for young people know that it's been a good, worthwhile investment of capital and time.
Jeff, can I add 3 zeros to your number?
Absolutely. That's your job.
That's so cool.
Gene, are you thinking in terms of total downloads, like something like 1 million 10 years from now, or how are you thinking of that?
Totally. I do think in millions. We have 20.8 million college and high school students in the U.S. right now. Massively underserved. And, the dichotomy I look at, Andrew, is in every one of those classrooms, those 20.8 million students are being taught by an educator who has a plan every day. And yet most of those 20.8 million students are graduating to the real world without that same thing, a plan. Every coach, every club leader throughout their entire academic career has a plan for this circumstance, and yet we are putting 20.8 million students into the world without a plan. So I do think in terms of a little bit of a larger number.
That's really inspiring, guys. I'm a personal finance nerd, and I see it. Everywhere I look, I see the issue in our society of a lack of people having an operating framework of how to make these decisions. So, I love that you're thinking about how technology can solve this problem. It's so inspiring, and I know we're rooting for you, and we're betting on you. So, hey, as we move forward here, how can our listeners engage with you or learn more about Troutwood, or can they download the app? Is that a thing they can do now? So tell us how can people connect with you?
Download the app, build a plan, then stick with it. The various Troutwood and the various social channels, but build and implement a financial plan.
Yep. They're welcome to sign up as beta testers through our website. Follow our newsletter. Stay tuned for product launches and updates. But we're very excited to give people a chance to try it and have whatever feedback they can provide.
Great. Thanks.
All right. So you heard it directly from Gina and Jeff. You can download the app in the Apple Store, the Google Play Store. Put a financial plan together and stick to it. So, hey, thanks so much, Gene and Jeff, for joining us today. I hope that all the listeners understand the impact that education can have on their financial future, both today, tomorrow, and into future generations. That's something I took out of this. And again, I think it's a huge value to the listeners just to understand the impact of that financial plan on their future. Thanks so much for joining us, Gene and Jeff. Thanks for the listeners for listening in. And we'll talk to you all next time here on the Real Returns Podcast. Take care.